Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Earth to Marissa podcast. Today we have a beautiful guest, a incredible spiritual teacher, my spiritual teacher, intuition development course leader, mentor, abundance queen, and a beautiful mother here, Brittany Deigh, Divinity Experiencing. Hi, Brittany.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me, love.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited to dive into this. You were like one of the first people when I was like sitting down to find who do I want on the podcast. I was like, of course, Brittany.
Oh,
Gotta have her in. We gotta have her in. And I was like, I was channeling with spirit and like, yeah, your energy just immediately was present. And I was like, okay, we're gonna make it happen. Let's go. And here we are.
yes.
Yes. So have you been working with an affirmation lately?
Um, I don't know if it would be necessarily be called an affirmation, but like a saying that I keep needing to say to myself that's very relevant and important in my life right now. Which is detachment is not caring less, it's caring more about my own serenity.
Mm, wow. I want to breathe that in. Yeah, that's beautiful. That really resonates with what has been flowing in my life because I have been trying to take as much space as I can to fill my cup, especially in this rest period, winter period. And yeah, to just hold yourself in such a sacred place can look like, like you don't care about others or you are putting people on the back burner or, whatever it is, like your friends are like, where are you? And I just, yeah, I have to fill my cup first. And last week on the podcast, we talked about being alone and like alone time and what that looks like. And so that is super resonant. How does that show up for you?
I actually found that little quote or affirmation through Al-Anon. And so I come from a long background of addiction, not only my own addictions, but with my family. And one of my greatest addictions is trying to save my family. And I spent a long time trying to save my family, trying to save other people from themselves. And, and I thought that what I was doing was caring about them. I thought that what I was doing was, I was helping. And so whenever I learned that, quote, it really hit me. And I realized that, it's not caring less, and that I do have to care for my own serenity first, or otherwise, like you said, I'm pouring from an empty cup. I have to fill my cup up first. And so, just dealing right now with some moving through a lot of ancestral work and a lot of old trauma and, just working through systemic familial trauma and patterns and cycles. And so that, saying always when these things resurface and they're really alive, that saying is like something that I kind of anchor to remind myself to not get too involved, to not get too attached to any outcome or to try to make anything happen. I have to care about my serenity and detach from any expectation or outcome or what anyone else is supposed to do or gonna do, or and that's not because I don't care about them. It's just because I do care more about my own serenity and my own peace. I do, it's not really a selfish thing. That's a genuine truth. I do actually care more about that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not a bad thing. I think in our society, it's easy to call that like selfish
hmm
or like I know in my family, it's like, well, that's what family does. You show
hmm
up. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what if I can't show up for myself right now?
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to show up for another person?
Yep.
And I always get, well, you just do it. You just do it. And it's like, no, I'm sick of just doing
Doing
it.
it. Yeah.
No, like if I'm gonna do something, I want to be 100% there,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna get the best version of myself if I
Hmm.
haven't sat in my own serenity first.
And I'm going to end up resentful.
Yes. Yeah, there's gonna be extra energies
Yeah,
there.
I'm going to be really resentful with you later about it because I
Mhm.
betrayed myself and you
Yep.
convinced me that that was the right thing to do and somehow I listened to you and I gave my power away and it's just this whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it turns into like a
Yes.
way bigger situation energetically,
Yes.
physically, mentally,
Absolutely.
spiritually, like
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
emotionally, all the things. Yeah.
Hmm.
There's so much more to clear and so much more work to do instead of just doing what is actually feels true in the first
Hmm.
place.
And that's all about loving your truth,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. It goes
Mhm.
into the course that you teach and mentor and facilitate. That's
Mhm.
amazing. And then what is the self-care ritual that you have been working with, or routine, or
Well, you know me. I'm a self-care routine ritual
I love
devoted.
it. Yeah. No, I see you like getting massages or like going to the gym, saunaing, and I'm like, yes, reminder, thank you.
Yes. I've been yeah, I'm a big self-care routine. And actually, I don't know why this is coming to me, but it's so interesting because I'm a very devotional natured person. I'm very like this is my devotion, this is how I show my devotion, this is how I show up um and devote myself to my practice, to myself, to my connection with my higher power. And it was probably I've been doing almost the same ritual every morning. I get up and I journal as soon as I wake up so that way I can either write down my dreams or just whatever my thoughts are, whatever is feeling really present, the very first thing in the morning. And then I meditate because that's it's like clear it all out before I sit. And then I sit, and then I go to the gym and utilize my relationship with my body and really anchor into that relationship and strengthen my mind and my focus and my mind body connection. But I've been doing pretty much, sometimes I'll throw in reading a book in there. But I've been doing pretty much that same routine for, I want to say
It's been a while.
6 or 7 years now. Yeah.
Holy
6 or 7
cow.
years now.
Wow.
And I there was a point where I had to let go of it because I had become identified with it, where I
Mhm.
was like, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be spiritually aligned or in touch
Yeah.
with myself. And it became like I need this and I didn't want that. So I had to stop for like 6 months or so in order to reclaim that for myself. But I remember there was a point somewhere in that 6 years or so that a friend of mine was like, yeah, I don't have to do the whole like, because he knew how devoted I am to those practices. And he's like, yeah, I don't have to get up and do all that anymore. Like I've moved beyond that. And I'm like, that's a really, really interesting statement.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's something, and in the moment I just kind of let him have his moment. And I just thought it was so intriguing. And I was very curious. And then as I sat with it, I was like, these are things that I do for my own connection and well-being with myself. This is not because I need to do this in order to, but it was such a beautiful divine reflection because it's important for me to continue to evaluate my why. Why am I doing this every morning? Why am I dedicating the time to this every morning? Why is
The
this
intention.
important? Why is this an anchor for me? Yeah, the intention. And so yeah, I'm all about the self-care and the massages and the and the sauning and the floats and the all of the things. But those practices are an anchor for myself. And I really, really, for anyone that's listening, I really recommend to just give yourself something that's realistic and a time period to just try it out, even if it's 3 weeks, but just a time period. Hopefully that's more than like 21 days. because that's whenever we develop a habit,
Mhm.
but to just see how it could impact your life. The self-care sometimes is definitely helpful, but there is something so different about making sure that you tend to yourself in these small ways every single day.
Completely agree. I completely agree. I work at a job where I'm serving people, right? When I walk in, I'm serving people. And at the beginning of that job, I found like I had not served myself at all first. I rolled out of bed and I went and I'm immediately
Mm.
putting out, and it that's how to burn out. And I
Yeah,
like burnt out so quickly. I was like, okay, this is not working. No way. Nope. I'm like, I'm just gonna have to get up early,
early.
like, and show up for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
even this morning, like today's my day off, but I was up at 7:30
Mm-hmm.
because I knew I needed to be in a grounded place, well fed, well hydrated, and like ready to go for this beautiful container that's happening, and like it means so much to like the little part of me, like almost bringing tears to my eyes right now. Like it means so much to her that I took the time to like sit with her first and to like show up for her, and that it really is beautiful when you are able to anchor in and fully connect.
Yeah.
I do admire how much you move your body. I am still anchoring that in. I have been doing yoga more. But I think, yeah, I guess I move my body. I don't give myself enough credit. But it's just in a different way. It's not first thing in the morning. It's usually in the evening. But like just dancing and like the feminine flow. Like I always love seeing your dancing videos because they're just inspiring, like it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what tune is going on. It's just to connect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Hmm.
move the energy, move what's in your body, you know?
Yeah.
The body
Hmm.
stores so much. And, as we talk about, it's like we all talk about energy all day long, but it's like, what are you doing to move the energy in your body? Because your body
Hmm.
is just full of it.
Truly, truly. Yeah. Gotta wiggle more. Wiggle, wiggle.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And even
yeah.
just like little increments of like, it's like after this, go move your body for 10 minutes and just, it's like we've been sitting for this
Shake.
for whole time. I mean, obviously it's not been very long thus far, but you know what I mean? Like by the end of it, it's like we'll be sitting for a while and then just go put on even one song and just move your
Hmm.
body. And it's just it's so impactful. And yeah, and just embodiment work. And it's not something that I necessarily teach, but it's a huge part of my practice and has become. And I think too, I've always kind of been like a gym junkie, and so when I learned about embodiment and how the body actually releases, energy, stored energy and trauma and all these different
Hmm.
things, then I was like, whoa, it just turned my whole relationship with that to like a whole nother level. I was like, fuck yes, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's doing way more than just, keeping
Hmm.
my body in shape and toned and,
Yeah.
yeah, moving. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, for
Um,
me, to be honest, working out it's more mental. I mean, I do appreciate what it does to my body, but for me, it's mental focus.
just
It's
like
because I'm sitting there
practice, like,
and I'm doing that push up and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to fucking fold right now. I just want to fold, but I have to keep pushing through until I hear that timer go off and then I can release. But that
um,
level of mental strength that is built in that moment when my limbs are literally shaking and I just want to just fall on the fucking floor, that is what I go to the gym for. 100%. I mean, it's great that I end up, getting these great
yeah, with
muscles
like
from it.
muscles. Yeah, yeah. I
But
love that though.
yeah,
Yeah. I
it is
mean, that
absolutely
is
it does so much for me.
such strength. Yeah, I
Hmm.
found that in yoga really like I mean, yesterday in the flow, like my thighs, we were doing so many what are they? Thunderbolts, which is like where you're like in chair but like for kind of like a chair pose. But we were doing so many of those and like moving our legs a lot and like squatting, doing goddess squats a lot and yeah, it's just the state that you get in where you're just so zoned in
Yep.
and you're like, I don't care how bad it hurts, like I'm just here and I'm doing it and it feels good. And like, yeah, my body was shaking at the end
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I need food. I need food. I should have fed myself better, but yeah, it does. It feels amazing. And then yeah, when you're in those hard moments during life, you're able to just breathe through them because you do that every day
Yes.
in a different way.
Mhm.
It's like ice baths.
Yep,
It's
exactly.
the same, yeah, mental kind of thing with
Preparation, yeah.
anxiety.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. When did you find like what originally got you into the gym? Like how
You
did
know,
you
to
become
be
a
honest,
gym junkie?
it's my mom. My
Oh yeah.
mom, yeah, she was a cycle instructor growing up, and so we
Oh
would go to the
wow.
gym at 6 a.m. and I would just have to sit there in her class, and then she would take me to school. And so as soon, oh God, I couldn't wait. Like the day, because you can't touch the weights or do anything until you're 13.
Oh wow.
And so it was like the day that I turned 13, I was like, oh, now I finally don't have to just sit in her class. Like I can go out and like
Move
do my
around.
own thing. And so I started working out like the day that I was like literally able to, but I'd been in the gym
Wow.
just chilling there with my mom for a long time before that. I had to get up early with her in order to go and then take me to school. So I was already in the routine of getting up. She just kind of created the habit in my life. And then
That's
once I
beautiful
was
though.
old enough to go myself, then I started going, I would do my own thing with her. And then after that, it was like, all right, this is just part of what I do. Like, this isn't, it's just always been there, This is just what I do.
Yeah.
So shout out to mama for that one, for sure.
Yeah. That's so nice because
Yeah.
I do not have my mom does not like physical movement, and so I think that is I'm healing those wounds
Hmm.
on my end. And gyms like can make me feel kind of uncomfortable,
Hmm.
but I know that's just like a me thing, and it's probably because I don't really know what I'm doing
Yeah.
when I'm
Yeah.
in a gym. So yeah, I would definitely love to get to that point. Because I the muscle what's it called where like you pinpoint it. I really love like focusing,
Trigger
just
points?
isolation,
Oh,
isolation,
isolation.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, isolation of the muscle, and you can feel everything in your body in that isolated
Hmm.
spot, and like feel the whole working together to make this one component like move.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And speaking of your mom, so you said you have been moving through breaking ancestral cycles, and a lot of trauma has been coming up, and a lot of just a movement has been going on. And two, you have just experienced 2 years sober.
Hmm.
Congratulations, that's
Thank
truly
you.
incredible.
Thank
I
you.
saw that on Instagram and I was just shining for you because it's willpower, it's strength, it's courage, it's
Hmm.
all the things, it's trust in self. And I would love to dive into this. Does that relate to the ancestral things that are coming up for you?
Yeah, so part of the ancestral healing that I've been doing, like as of this last like week or so, it became really relevant. So basically, long story short, I was raised in a really addicted household. My father passed away from an overdose when I was 3 years old. My brother was a heroin addict for like over 15 years, and my mom had really serious bouts of alcoholism, just trying to manage, keeping my brother alive and from overdosing, and just the trauma that she was experiencing and the loss of my father. And so I was kind of just like this child that was in it. Um, and and so I I had a lot. I had really like not very much safety, and um it was just constant chaos. I didn't really have a safe space. I didn't really have anyone that really had my back. Like even my mom would betray me to enable my brother, and it was just the three of us. So I didn't really have really anybody that I could truly like. Now that I actually understand what healthy relationships are and what real trust is, and commitment, and security with, another person or other people in your life. I just can see how much I had none of that at all, for my whole upbringing. And then I left my whole family, which was really hard for me because I was still addicted to being a part of the chaos of our
Mhm.
family, system. Whenever I was 19 and I left and I traveled and I pretty much didn't talk to any of them for almost 3 years. I just like cut them off and I found myself. Yeah, I went from like deep in it, very interconnected with it all, to I met someone and had they kind of invoked a spiritual awakening in me, and I just took off and I went through a spiritual awakening. And so then whenever I came back, whenever I was 25, my mom was definitely a lot better in her path. She still like had gotten some DUIs and was still drinking, but it wasn't like nearly as bad as it was previously. My brother had went to prison at this point. He was in prison, high security prison for 5 years, and so things had at least calmed down a little bit because there wasn't this constant chaos. He was locked in a cage, which is awful, but there wasn't this constant chaos happening
Yep.
around, the family all the time. Uh, and then whenever it was about 5 years ago, my brother finally decided and surrendered and got sober. And so he had been sober for like 5 years. And even though it was still a little bit chaotic at times and at moments, he hadn't he like hadn't used or anything, and so it was kind of like we felt like we were kind of becoming like a normal family, to some extent. My mom and I did a lot of healing. We actually went to therapy together and we just faced a lot of shit that we needed to talk about and address, from my childhood. And so, just this last week, this just happened, like 11 days ago. My brother relapsed on heroin, and it put a huge, it was like all of this old stuff resurfacing. Now he has kids that he's had, in his sobriety. So I have like my nephews and my niece. There's CPS involved, and just it's just all this, chaos again, that has resurfaced. Um, and I know that it is related to my ancestral healing because my entire dad's side they're all addicts. My dad passed away from a cocaine overdose. My uncle was addicted for like over 20 years. He's sober now. My aunt also addicted for over 15 years, finally sober now. My dad's other brother was actually found on the back of a public bus. He was just riding around on the back of the bus. He'd overdosed on the back of the bus, and
Oh
he
my
was just
goodness.
sitting back there. Yeah, he's found dead on the back of the public bus. He had overdosed and was just going
Holy
on.
cow.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
then
all, yeah.
my dad's other brother was addicted as well. Not as bad as the rest of his siblings, but still very much so. And then all of us, the kids of those my brothers or my dad's siblings, all of us kids got it to some extent as well. And I know that they can't track addiction as far as like a mental, to me, it's a
It's
spiritual illness.
momentum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
it's
And it's
momentum.
momentum. Yes. To
Yeah.
me, it's a spiritual sickness, and there is greater momentum that is built in different generations. And we
Mhm.
have a very strong, um, and I do honestly think that I think it goes all the way back to like, our roots are from Ireland, and Ireland is known
Yep.
to be drinkers. They're just
Yep.
drinkers. And so I think it goes all the way back to like the roots of my ancestry. Um, but there's just so much momentum there. And, but this time it's been even though it was so devastating and, disappointing to be back in this same place, and our family having to like move and navigate through this again, and like what do we do with the kids? And we got to do an intervention and we got to get him to rehab and, all of this stuff. I also simultaneously see the amount of work that I've done, that the way that I'm navigating this is so incredibly different than
Yes.
all these past versions of Brittany.
Yes.
And my ability to turn things over to my ancestors
Mm.
and be used as a hollow bone. I'm here, you can use me, but I don't want to do the work. I want you all to do the work because I know you're capable of doing it and I know that you're here to do it, but you do need someone to do it through in order to do more than what you can do energetically.
Mhm.
Because they can pull strings out energetically, but whenever I'm actually allowing my body and my being to be used as an energetic portal for things to be shifted, they can get more done. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I've just been doing a lot of that over the last week and just collapsing old addictions in myself. Like it's so crazy that this all happened right whenever I'm hitting my 2 years
Two
sober.
years sober. Yeah. Yeah. What divine timing.
You just can't
What
make that
divine
shit
timing.
up.
Mhm.
And it's like I'm collapsing. The crazy thing is so wild. Just you just can't make this shit up. Is like my dad passed. Me and my brother are exactly 3 years and 1 month apart. He was born on September 12th. I was born on October 12th. And the year that my dad died, my brother was turning 7. My dad died in June. My brother was about to turn 7 and I was about to turn 3. Well, this year, the same year that my brother just relapsed, my nephew, his son, who is the third, so my dad is senior, my brother is junior, and then he's the third, is turning 7 in June. My daughter, Gaia, is turning 3 in May. Yeah.
Chills.
And that's what
Goosebumps.
I said to my brother when I was talking on the phone. I'm like, dude, this is the year. This is the actual year that we collapse the cycle. Like, I'm glad that you've been sober. I'm glad that I've been sober. But this is the moment. Like, this is when we actually do this. And I can only do this for my line. Like, I can only do this for mine. You have to do this for yours. And I really do feel like it landed with him because he was like, whoa, dude, I never thought about that. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is it right here. This is the cycle. Like if we can make
Mhm.
it past this, then we're it's not that we're in the clear because addiction is for life, but we've at
Yes.
least collapsed what the story
So much.
was. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
You can
So
start
fucking
rewriting.
much. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so
It,
I've been doing a lot of spirit, a lot of fucking energetic work over here,
yeah,
dude.
dude. Yeah. It's no coincidences, all synchronicities. Like I
Mm-hmm.
heard that recently and I just that resonates so much with me. So you mentioned having your ancestors use you as a vessel to work out
Mm-hmm.
their own trauma that they left,
Mm-hmm.
basically, with the ancestral line. What does that specifically look like? So, is that like before you enter a family gathering, you're talking to your ancestors to like assist you during that? Or is it more so on your own space? Like, hey, I'm open to do this work right now.
Mm-hmm.
Bring forth what is. So, what does that really look like? So people can.
Usually, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Usually it's when things are really alive. Like right now, this is really alive. This is
Yes.
really active. So this is one of the best times to do it. I've definitely called upon them entering to gatherings with my family or things that we're going to be doing or like previous interventions, those kinds of things I've called upon them. But what I'm talking about is a little bit different. Like I'm essentially just in a meditative state, but I'm sitting in my own space, in my own time, whenever things are really active and alive and the energy is so potent right there. It's like so dense you could just grab it. It's so right there. And I'm allowing them just like any time that I channel, I'm allowing them to move through me so that that way they're a little bit closer to the etheric, like the earth realm. They have a little bit closer contact with, because I'm allowing them to
Yes.
use my container here on earth.
Got it.
And then they will do the energetic work and shift things and make things happen and move things that may not even necessarily be, I think that they may feel some residue too, because it's work that they didn't do, but really it's just assisting what is here now, what is happening now, what we need assistance with now.
Hmm.
I've been in these, dropped into these states, called them in, allowed them to use me, and been in these meditative states. And then I come out and I look at my phone and it's like, oh my God, Dan just checked himself in and da da da, and all this shit has happened over the last hour. And I'm
Holy
like,
cow.
okay, cool, good.
Work got done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Thank
have
you.
to go there and go to his house and not like, that's what I mean by I'm not doing the work anymore. I'm allowing
Hmm.
them to do the work through me. Where before I used to try and take a bunch of action and be the one to do it and get their guidance on what action to take. And now I'm like, you just do it. Here you go. I'm going to step aside because most of the time I have my own agenda and my own selfishness of what I want to happen, where whenever I allow them to do it, it just I personally feel there's more results.
Oh, absolutely. Because they're able to tap into different things more, and because they can see the bigger picture
All
where
of it.
we see through our
Yes.
ego. Yeah, that's interesting. And there was a question that came through with compassion, because when you're working with someone like family, but also with addiction, I feel compassion is like the biggest thing to drop into that has helped me during like those experiences. And I would love to know like if you have any words of wisdom on like, yes, it can be frustrating, disappointing, and heartbreaking, but how do you still show up for someone that has chosen to do something like that in this? And then that also affects you, because family close, like it's not only affecting you, it's yes, the three-year-old self that lives in Gaia, and then their children, ma, like everything. Has compassion been like energy that you've been working with?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I feel like the closest connection that I can find to that, as you were saying, that was that it took me a long time, and I want you all to know, for anyone that's listening and may have dealt with family members that are, have addiction issues, or just been exposed to that, and if you have a lot of resentment and you haven't forgiven and you're still just pissed that you have to deal with this, or had to deal with this at any point, this, what I'm saying right now, is going to be extremely challenging for you to wrap your head around. Because, like you said, Marissa, you said someone that's choosing to do this. And to be honest, I have learned, at least in my experience, that
Yeah,
a lot of it really isn't a
choice.
choice. And
Yeah.
my advice or my response to that would be, what has helped me to be truly compassionate, not with an inkling in the background of like, but fuck you, this is bullshit that you're choosing this and you're still doing this, but to truly be compassionate and see them in their human experience and to be able to observe, um, is to separate the illness from the person
Mm-hmm.
and to see the illness. It's like an infection, just like when we get sick
Yeah.
or when we have, whenever, it's like half the world got covered in COVID. Like, was that person choosing to be
Yeah.
sick with COVID? It's like, no, they were sick. They were just sitting at home ill. And it's not to entice a victim mentality, but it's to see the reality of this illness for what it is.
Yeah.
And whenever you're still in a state of resentment and you haven't forgiven that person, and you still see it as, why are they choosing this? Why did they choose to treat me like this? Why did they, whenever you still see them as this is something that they do have control over, then it's hard for you to have that compassion at all, because otherwise, if you were anywhere in normal and not sick, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you do these
Yes.
things?
Yeah.
But these people are genuinely sick. They're ill. They're spiritually ill. So that's why
Hmm.
there's no science. That's why there's nothing that you can track. But their
Yeah.
soul is literally sick, just like we're like sick with a snotty nose, but their soul
Mhm.
has a snotty nose.
This makes so much sense. And to, I was told recently by a friend, like, the collective energies work through different individuals, and that individual signed up to be
Yep.
a representation of that collective
Yep.
energy to then move through it, work through it again, momentum.
Mhm.
And we were talking about, like, another way this shows up was like, a toxic relationship maybe where like the man played the very man role and was a provider, but then expected like transactional exchange from providing. And it's easy to get upset at that person, but like it's removing the collective masculine wounds from the person who
Yes.
is
Oh, I just
just
got
taking them
chills.
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
And this
such a
is the
great
exact
way of
same.
saying it. Yes.
Yeah, and this is the exact same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you for this new perspective. That really changes a lot of it too with like mental health even.
Yeah.
Like it is truly a
Yes.
collective sickness and
Yes.
illness. And it frustrates me so badly because I have to move through that just like you have moved through your own addiction, and we're on this other side now seeing things, and it's easy to get frustrated and be like, why don't you see it this way? Why don't you see
Hmm.
it this way? Why don't you change? Like it would just take this much. And I find myself just getting so frustrated at there's a particular person in my life that has severe mental health.
Hmm.
And I have tried to show compassion, and this helps, and I know will
Yeah.
help with seeing
Yeah, because when they're
seeing it
observing those
differently.
behaviors, it's like you don't even see them anymore. You're like, oh, okay, I see your bipolar, or I see your whatever it is. It's like, okay, or I see your OCD. I see it right now. I'm looking at it. I see that illness. I'm watching it. I'm watching it move through you. It's not even you. It's not even them. And it's, I mean, and we're here observing it, right? And I mean, I have some connection with addiction, but I'm more on the enabler side, the codependent side of the addiction. um but can you imagine what it must be like to be them? That's what my brother said to me. He was like, dude, you're witnessing it. Imagine what it's like to be. Because I was like, dude, it was so crazy to see you like that again. Like, I haven't seen you like that, like nodding out and all out of it in years. And he's like, yeah, imagine being it. I haven't seen myself like that in 5 years.
And that's beautiful that he has the cognitive awareness
Hmm. Hmm.
to be able to see that shows the growth and change within him, which
Yes.
is so beautiful and important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
super proud of him. He's come such a long way from holy crap where he was. But I do think that I also think he deals with mental illness. And then that's whenever the addiction soothes the symptoms
yeah.
from his mental illness. And so yeah, it was whenever you had added in the mental illness, they just go so hand in hand. And I feel like
Yeah.
they're so similar, and most people that are addicted either have a mental illness, or most people that have a mental illness are using substances to relieve what they're experiencing. And yeah, it's really, really challenging, and it's also something that is likely been passed down
Yep.
over and over again. It's usually
Hmm.
generational, it's usually ancestral, it's usually not just that person. And once again, it's like separating it from the person, like it's really not their fault.
Yeah.
They chose to incarnate into that and collapse
Yes.
that, like we were just
Hmm.
saying, but it's not necessarily. it's not the momentum from just them. It's
Yeah.
momentum from like
Thousands.
way
Yeah.
before them.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's in the body, right? And when it's that close
Hmm.
in the body, that's why the movement
Yep.
helps. Yeah. So with your 2 years sober, how have you found, because I also did like a 2 years sober situation, and I have been just integrating weed, marijuana medicine just back in and just playing with it and seeing how it serves me right now. But during the 2 years, I realized that there was a deep nurturing that I came into, and I still hold that. Where like you show up for yourself in every moment. There is no like zombieing out or using it as like a crutch or like whatever it is. Like, how have you found that your ability to nurture yourself has shifted in this 2 years?
Yeah, I think just kind of like what you were saying is like the clarity. Like I have it's unreal to be so incredibly present and clear with my human experience. I didn't even think, honestly, for a long time that I was capable of it. I thought like I needed weed in order to function, in order to
Yeah.
get through life. I was like, it's all too much. It's all too stressful. It's all too, how am I going to deal with this or how am I going to deal with that? And even bodily things like how am I going to deal with my soreness? How am I going to deal with a tummy ache? How am I going to, all these
Yeah.
things. And and I have just learned that the clarity that comes from being sober, I mean, to be honest, a lot of my motivation is to break an ancestral. I don't want to necessarily use the word curse, but that's the best way of saying it.
Black magic.
Yeah, dark magic. Yeah, is to break that in my, because I'm now, it's no coincidence that my daughter's, 2.5 years old and that I've been
Yeah.
2 years sober. I
Mm-hmm.
was using weed while I was pregnant. I was, even while I was breastfeeding, I was still smoking. And I just remember sitting there and being like, this is so fucked. Like, this is so fucked. Like, I'm sitting here breastfeeding and hitting a bowl. This is so fucked. And the guilt and the shame, and like, it wasn't feeding parts of myself that I wanted to continue to heighten and expand and to pour more energy and yeah, awareness and life force into. I wanted actually them to be dwindled, and so the level of self-worth and um like yeah, there's not much that I have a lot of shame around anymore. I don't have those bouts of shame come over me, and I am so mentally clear. I feel so alive in my experience because I'm not taking a time out at any point, which also means that you have to find other ways to take a tea, like working
Yeah.
out, like meditating, like going and
The
walking in the
self-care.
woods. Yeah,
Self-care. Yeah.
exactly. You have to find other ways. But yeah, I just, for me, my main motivation is to collapse this for my children. But I love and I embrace all of the ways that it's affecting my life and that it's helping me. But to me, it's more just about like I'm this is going to end with me. I'm not going to put my children through this. And I know that this is the way to end this. Abstinence is the easiest way. It's not like I have to think about like, well, if I just use this and I didn't drink anymore, if it's like, no, that none of the not negotiation. Like, it's just, if I just do this, I know that this is done with me. It's that simple. And it's not also not simple, but it is that simple. The solution and the answer is super simple. To actually accomplish that is not so simple.
Different story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. but it's very clear what I need to do. I know what the mission is.
Yeah. 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 And here you are doing it. Here you
Thank
are doing
you.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Gaia, this is Brittany's daughter, which you birthed New Earth. Oh my God. I love that. I think it was like a story and like your mind was blown and my
Yeah.
mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That's fantastic. Um, so motherhood, it changes you as a person. It changes you as a being. Um, Tell me about that because you have taken the initiation from yes, maiden to mother,
Mhm.
and we were talking a little bit earlier about what that looked like for you.
Mhm.
And with being so anchored into this self-care, how did yes, the pregnancy just change those routines? And then also now that you do have a little walking and talking baby, like how does that shift your divination, your devotion and connection to spirit?
Yeah, I in my like initiation from maiden to mother, the initial sense was like as soon as I knew that I was pregnant, like even before I had actually taken a pregnancy test, when I just knew, it felt like this whole avalanche of ancestral trauma fell on my shoulders.
Whoa.
Like all of the mothers that went before me and all of their stories and all of the ways that they mothered and all of their birth stories and that trauma and like all of it, like when I was a maiden I was not connected to that. I
Yeah.
didn't need it ended up being wisdom, but initially it was an avalanche of trauma.
Wounds.
um and um And at least that was my experience. I know that some people, go through the initiation from maiden mother and become a mother for the first time, and it seems pretty simple to them. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's not what it was for me at all. I'm very sensitive. I'm highly, highly sensitive, and I'm very connected to other realms where these things are held. And so as soon as I connected into that energy, it was like I connected into a line where it was all there. And I remember, I just looked down at the time, it's 11:11 here. And I remembered that in the very beginning, because of who I am and how I am, doing the work and alchemizing and all these things, I genuinely felt like I had to do all of this before my child was born. I didn't want her to face any of this. And I was so like in this, I have to alchemize all of this. And it was not, I had an expectation of myself that was not even possible.
No. That is so much to take on, like literally taking on an avalanche while you're pregnant.
Yes. And it took a long time. Like it took probably almost 6 months for me to just finally surrender and accept there's no way I'm going to get this all done before she's born. There's just no way. And it didn't even dawn on me at the time. Like obviously it hit me later that like she's already here. Look,
Already
like I
gone through
didn't,
it.
whenever you like have your first baby, you're like, oh, there's this thing in my belly. But like until they come out, you're like, oh my God, that was a human.
Yeah, like that
That
was a
was
living
literally a human. Yeah,
being.
I was like, she was already here. She was
Yeah.
already here for this trauma. She was already here for and whatever is still remaining, she'll tap into whenever she's mother. Maybe, maybe not.
Mhm.
But I had put such a pressure on myself to like do all of this work. I was also dealing with a lot of medical things at the time. That's my ovarian cyst had developed, and I had essentially a grapefruit sitting next to my child the whole time that she was trying to develop, which is your pelvis only has so much space. And
Y-
so and I know that a grapefruit doesn't seem like it's that small, but when you're talking about your pelvic floor, that's huge.
No, a grapefruit seems huge. It was
Yeah.
seriously that size?
Yeah, it was 14 centimeters.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how big it was because I've heard
Yeah.
your birth, like your actual birth
Hmm.
story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it
Now,
was
did you get
huge.
that? Do you think
Yeah.
that was like a physical manifestation of trying to take on all of that trauma at once through like the like trying to get through it? Or like have you thought of like what that was or
Yeah.
like what
So
it's tied to?
that's actually like a totally different story. So
You don't have
I
to get
was
into
really
it if you
close.
don't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I can
Okay.
make it brief too, so that way we can
Heard.
get back. But basically, prior to having a child, I did all this womb work, and I got my whole womb is like super clean and clear, for me to birth a baby. And I didn't know that I was about to birth a baby, but I was just following my intuition, and I'd done all this womb work, and I there was like this completion where I went to this women's circle, thought it was just going to be like a sharing circle, had no idea that it was this like Hawaiian womb initiation. I was like, what the fuck?
Whoa.
Yeah, so crazy.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I literally just thought that I was going to a women's circle. I just clicked like buy a ticket and let's go. I don't know. Anyways, and it was this like crazy initiation thing. But it also, I was bawling my eyes out, and all the women there were so, there was like 30 women there, and they were so inspired because I was like, dude, I've been doing this womb work for like 9 months straight now, just focused on cleaning and cleansing and clearing all the trauma out of my womb, from being raped and all these are just different things. And then I was like, I know that this is the completion point. This is not a coincidence when I thought that I was just going to a women's circle tonight, and this is some Hawaiian womb initiation, and it's like this, and everyone could just feel what was happening, and they were so inspired and were like, this is inspiring me to go on a womb journey of clearing my womb, because we can see, like, we went into like our womb rooms, and my shit was just cleared. Like, it was so, dude, it was so hella tight. That's a whole nother story.
That's
But
beautiful.
anyways, then I started dating this guy who had a lot of shame, so much shame. And whenever we would make love, it was like I could, because my womb was so clean, I could like
Mhm.
feel how I was being like penetrated with this shame, and this shame was being moved back into my womb, and I would keep trying to do these
Yeah.
clearings, but really I just needed to stop dating the guy, right? And so that, I think, was where some of the cyst, because I'd started having some urinary issues, and my muscles and my pelvic floor started to become weakened, and different things started then. And then that was probably like 8 or 9 months before I got pregnant. I had met DJ probably 6 months after that. Me and DJ got pregnant like
Mhm.
3 months after we met. Um, so then, but the timing, I also had at the time my very best friend. We were best friends for like 4 years. We talked every day on the phone, and we did everything together, and we were very codependent, but we were best friends. Um, but she had a story around infertility, because she had a marriage where they had tried to have children, and she found out she was infertile, and he was really abusive to her about it. They ended up getting a divorce, and yeah, just like saying she was less than a woman, and like all these really fucked up things. For years she experienced, actually ended up developing cancer. It was so abusive, what she was in. Healed herself naturally. She's a fucking powerhouse. No chemo, no nothing. Stage 3, like fucking
Holy shit.
insane. Yeah, dude, she's a
Wow.
fucking powerhouse.
It's truly amazing what our bodies can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but she had this story around infertility, and so then here I am, her best friend that we talk every day, and I get pregnant. And
Mhm.
the day that we had our like falling out, like energetically, we hadn't like physically accepted it. We would still like talk, but energetically our severing had happened. It was on a Sunday, and the cyst blew up on that Friday. And
Whoa.
so, yeah, and so I think that the shame and some of the cyst had already been developed from my womb was so clean, and then I was just like injecting the shame in
Yeah.
there. Um or allowing it to be injected in there. And then whenever her and I had this energetic severing, and I knew it was like, I just felt like our timelines, we were like right aligned, always right aligned. And then it just went split. And when that happened, it was literally 4 days later that my cyst, I was still wasn't accepting it. And it was like when I finally surrendered, my cyst had just like completely blown up. I like literally could see it outside of my abdomen, sticking out of my belly. And so that was 8 weeks pregnant. That's how I started my pregnancy.
My goodness.
Yeah. I could go into the whole story of like my pregnancy was so traumatic, and it was like such a, I had doctors trying to steal my ovary and just like all different kinds
Yeah, I remember that. No, I
of
remember that,
crazy shit, dude.
which is
Crazy.
ridiculous. Yeah, that they would not communicate that before us or like you
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah, it was a very my initiation from maiden to mother was, but I also it was, I think it was so intense because I'm so sensitive. Like
Hmm.
some I've seen so many mothers that are like more on like the 3D path and like not really sensitive and not really even in touch with themselves, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I just had a baby." It's like no big deal.
Ew.
I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
this is life changing. This is like my
yeah.
identity shift, like everything.
Like
Like
ego death after
initiation.
ego. Yeah, yeah. Like drip drop. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
I really feel like it was such a vortexual intense experience for me because I'm so attuned to all of
Mhm.
those things. And
Yeah, you aren't
so,
afraid to go deep.
yes,
And so they
exactly.
said, "Okay, let's bring
Yeah.
it all."
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So, but my postpartum was definitely a reclamation, like I was saying earlier when we were talking, and um, I did what's called a sacred window, which is an Ayurvedic belief. Have you ever heard of the sacred window?
No.
Oh, girl, I'm so
Yes,
glad to
please.
share this with you and for any of our listeners. I am like such a firm believer in the sacred window and the potency and the sacredness of it.
Mm.
I experienced it myself. My doula and I were in tears at the closing ceremony of my sacred
Oh,
window because she was just like, I was her first like client that had gotten her like highest, biggest package that had like everything involved. And she was just in tears at the end, and she was like, it works. Like now I just know that like it really works. And I was like, yes, it does.
oh,
Um, but
feel that.
basically, the sacred window is an Ayurvedic belief where the first 42 days of a baby's life when they are birthed is sets up the next 40 years of that child's life.
Holy cow.
And so the practices that you do in those first 42 days are extremely important, essentially. So you don't really, the mother and the baby do not leave the house at all. Not one time, not for groceries, not for anything. You do not go outside, nothing. For 42 days. DJ was like, I don't know how, like, it was like probably like a month in, and he's like, I don't know how you're not fucking going insane in these four walls. I was like, I kind of am a little bit.
A little bit. Just a little
Yes,
bit.
a little bit. Maybe we'll just go for like a walk outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't go to the store. Like my friends, everyone brought food to me. My mom came, she moved her office over into our side room so that way she could be here every single day to go out and get me things if I needed things. DJ was a
Incredible.
rock star and he just fucking hauled it out and did whatever I needed. And so essentially, mother and baby, you're supposed to stay in the same room, and it's supposed to be a dark room for the 42 days. I couldn't quite do that, but I was able to stay at home. And I think I went on like maybe 2 or 3 walks over the 42 days. But I did stay at home, and it's just supposed to be mom to baby, as much skin to skin as possible. And then you do these specific practices. There's basically, it's like oil in every crevice. So like oil in your ears, oil in your nose, nose, oil in your mouth, oil in, your butt, in your vagina, and, these, I mean, like literally it's just oil everywhere.
What kind of oil?
It's a
Like castor
specific,
oil?
no, it's just like,
Oh,
I'm not sure, like an avocado oil or some sort, but it's like infused, with a
okay.
bunch of, herbs, very
Oh,
specific herbs.
yep.
And all of them are different, because there's different crevices that they're going into. But then you do what's called an abhyanga massage. It's a very specific type of energetic massage. It is a physical touch, but it's about moving the chi in a specific direction. And you do at least 3 of those a week. So I was getting 3 massages a week. It was really nice.
Amazing.
And baby just lays there with you, while you're doing it, unless someone can watch baby. And then there's specific herbs that you're taking in teas, and for your digestive system. And then your food cycle is very specific as well. Like you start with really light foods and broths and like rice puddings and nothing like heavy. And then you slowly integrate like more like vegetables, things that are like steamed and kind of cooked. And then you can kind of introduce like meat substances, but like in the food, not necessarily like eating a steak, but just like in within the food. So because your digestive system, whether you have, a vaginal birth or a C-section, either way, your whole digestive system
Yeah.
resets during birth.
Yeah.
So you're gradually, integrating your digestive system back into regular foods instead of just going back to eating regular foods.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did yoni pichus, and I mean, it was just like there's all of these different herbs, and there's these very specific ceremonies. At the end, you do the it's like a closing of the bones is what it's called. And it's essentially, I think it's so important. Even if you don't do the whole sacred window, every single woman needs to have a closing of the bones ceremony, because what it is that you tie these like scarves across your forehead, your eyes, your mouth, your throat, across your chest, all the way down your body.
Mhm.
And you're basically, what you're doing every single time that they say the prayer and they tie it and they close it, is that they're closing up your field. Your field just got
Mhm.
cracked open when you gave
Wide open.
birth. Wide
Well, and
open.
through the pregnancy, and
Yes.
through the like, yeah,
But
all of the.
birth, literally your whole vagina fucking open. Like you get
Mhm.
cracked open in the birth experience. Yes, through the whole process, but birth is just like on some other shit that energetically it's like your whole fields, your skeleton just went, "Arr," and then people try and just go back out into the world like that.
To
And
go
it,
to work within
yeah,
3 weeks? No,
yes, it's
never.
insane. And
Yeah.
so, and I just remember whenever I closed that experience and closed my field, that's when we were in tears. And it was just like,
Mhm.
we fucking did it, dude. Like we did the whole regime, we did every part of it, and we closed. And like now the work is done. Like now I'm like, okay, now I can go back to work. Like now I can do this, now I can do that. Now I can do all those things that I want to do. It only took 40 days to honor that and really
Yes.
fully have the presence and the sacred experience with it. And now I can go, I mean, it does take like 2 years to really go through the postpartum experience, but I could still go back to serving people. I could still go back to functioning and go back
Mhm.
to being a little bit more of just myself than just a holder for this being to land on earth. But it's like they need to land here, and that takes a minute.
Mhm. Fully, fully. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard it takes like, what was it? I can't remember the time frame, but it shocked me for a soul to fully integrate into the human baby body.
Hmm.
Like it takes like something like 2 months or something like that,
Hmm.
which 40 days, I mean, month and a half ish.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I know
That's
scientifically they've
beautiful.
proven that a baby does not realize that they are outside of the mother's body for the first 30 days of their life. They don't even realize that they're no longer in the womb.
In a womb space?
Hmm.
So that makes sense. The dark room and the
Yes.
skin to skin
Yes,
contact. Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
That sounds like such a beautiful experience. I had no idea that. Like, that's what,
Yeah.
because I knew I saw like the support was like coming in and
Hmm.
like, yes, you were at home and stuff, but oh my gosh, to move
Yeah.
through such a sacred, yes, closing of the
Hmm.
era. So then you can, yes, reacclimate into self
Hmm.
and the baby as well. And after this 2 years, where are you now with this and coming into self fully
Yeah, well,
again?
I definitely felt the remnants of postpartum, and
Hmm.
it slowly was dwindling, and then and they say it was 2 years, and I swear to God it was like 2 years and 2 days or something like that. Like, it was almost like to the day that I
Yeah.
was like, I just felt my own clarity again. I was like,
Oh.
I'm like, okay, she's like not depending on my nervous system anymore. Like, she's in her own being. I'm
Hmm.
my own being. Like, we're officially not severed. That's not possible. But as far as the dependence on my body and
Yeah.
my like nervous system and me, it's she was like finally in her own, and I was able to be in my own. And it was very liberating and honestly very exciting in
Hmm.
a lot of ways. I will always be there for my baby, of course, but it was just so nice to be like my own again, to be honest. Um, and then, here I am. What is it? She's gonna be 3 in June, so that's in like 5 months, something like that.
Hmm.
And we conceived again in November. So it was almost exactly 2.5 years later. And then here I am starting the cycle again with another child.
Yes, but like you said,
Yeah.
totally different
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now I'm the mother, and that makes a
Hmm.
huge difference. Now I'm already anchored. I'm not having an identity crisis.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, you're not, hopefully not feeling that weight like you
Yeah.
once did.
Yeah.
Do you think some of that energy will come back now that you are pregnant again to kind of flow through? Like, do you think that was just kind of like a one and done of feeling all of that weight that you had mentioned before?
I think that it's present, but I don't think that it feels heavy.
Yeah, as
I think
intense as it
yes,
once did.
it
Yeah.
doesn't. I now I know because and this kind of leads me into like intuition and how that's such
Yeah.
an important part of my work, because the
Mhm.
way that I explain it to people is that I I always, I've really solid developed a relationship with my intuition. That's why I'm able to teach that work and feel in a sense of mastery around it. And then whenever I became a mother, it was like another voice came online, and
Yeah.
there was my mother's intuition. And I literally, because I was so connected with my intuition, was like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Who is
What
this?
is this?
I don't trust you, yo. Like, I'm gonna listen to this. But this was my maiden
Mhm.
still. And so I was having this like, what the fuck is going on right now? Because I'm so connected with those voices, it was so clear that this was different. But now that me and my mother intuition are locked in now. We're solid. We're good. And I know the difference of these. Like, I know the difference here. Like, I know there's like my soul voice, and then there's like the mama voice that comes on. And like, I know I can discern, and I feel I have a trust in her that I didn't have. And so now doing it a second time, even if the reason why that ancestral trauma felt so heavy was because my maiden didn't believe in her ability to transcend it. But my mother does. The
Yes.
mother in me knows I can transcend this, or otherwise I wouldn't be a mother. But my maiden didn't believe that yet, and I didn't have trust with that voice yet. So I'm like,
Yep.
I don't know. Where
Yeah.
now, when it comes through, if there's, like right now I'm doing all this ancestral healing, it's like when it comes through and that mother has to come online, I trust her. I trust her voice. I trust her knowing. I trust that wisdom, where initially I didn't. So it all felt so heavy because I was here with all of this avalanche of trauma, but I didn't have the being was there that was able to deal with it, but I didn't trust her
Yeah.
because I didn't have a relationship
100%.
with her. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
No, it completely makes sense. Yeah, the different voices. I mean, I have those different voices and can also pinpoint them and be like, oh, okay, this is a galactic guide, or oh
Mm-hmm.
no, this is self intuition, or,
Yes.
and it's beautiful to, that's why I love your course and will forever be grateful, because you learn in the
Mm-hmm.
intuition development the different communication styles
Mm-hmm.
and also the different energies that you can communicate.
Yep.
You can communicate with anything. You just have to get to know the energy and you
Yes.
do that and you have such incredible experience. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, yeah, what your intuition looks like now in the relationship with that, with being the mother. And you kind of did answer that with there's just a separate voice that comes online. And have you ever had like your mother telling you one thing and your own intuition telling you another? And like how do you discern between that? Or are they usually pretty like
They're usually pretty
coexisting?
aligned.
Okay, good.
When they anytime that they weren't aligned was because I didn't trust my
Yeah.
mother. That was the only time that they seemed like they were colliding or not aligning. But it's almost like in a sense that the mother overrides it all.
Hmm.
Like if I'm like, no, but I want to like go travel and go on this trip because that's what's going to set my soul on fire, but it's like my if my mother steps in and is like, no, something's going to happen with Gaia that she needs your presence. It's like, okay, well then
You
that's
gotta trust that.
heard. She needs my presence. I'm
Hmm.
going to go on this trip at another time.
Yeah.
It's
Does Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's not that the mother intuition is necessarily more important. It's just it's a wiser knowing. It's like kind of how I imagine that when my crone comes in, she's going to be
Yes.
the pecking order, you know? It's like
Hmm.
she is going to override the mother because she's probably going to be wiser.
It's the evolutionary state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
So, do you feel the integration is still taking place and that's why there's two voices? Do you
I
think it will just be the one at a place and time?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. I think because I feel pretty integrated with my mother at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the mother in me is an aspect of my experience,
Yes. Okay,
which
okay.
is why me being a mother is not my soul.
Yes, got it.
So that's why it's comes through as a different voice. That's why it's a different aspect, and that's why I don't
Hmm.
think that they would ever merge.
It's like inner child and feminine spirit.
Yeah,
Two different
exactly.
energies. Got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a different aspect.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful. Okay.
it's like if
Yeah.
it's like would my inner child ever merge with my soul? It's like, well, no, not really, because that's a different aspect
They're
of self. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a different energy within your entire whole being,
Yes,
which
exactly.
is
Yeah,
so
they're all
beautiful.
parts of me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They make up the whole,
Whole.
but they
Yeah.
each have like specific wisdom that
Hmm.
carries in their area of
Yes.
your being. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. Does Gaia's higher self ever come in?
I definitely in the beginning,
Yeah.
but I would say like in dream state, I think I'm more open to it, but I think I have such a you know how I am about boundaries and how I am
Oh yeah.
about
Oh yeah.
sovereignty. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think in my conscious mind, I'm very much like if she needs me, she'll come to me. If she needs me,
Absolutely.
she'll come to me.
Yeah.
And she has come to me in dream state and in this physical reality, asking for help and assistance. Um, but most of the time, I'm very much like, I'm here if you need me. But I don't necessarily call her in or try or see or like, I want her to have as much of her own sovereign experience here in this Earth life, and I'm just here as like a space holder and kind of like a guide along the sideline. But like she's
Yeah.
on her own river paddling her own boat, you know? and I just might shout some things out from the river, from the riverside every once in a while. I'll be like, "Hey, you probably watch out for those rocks over there."
Yes, yes. I love to, I'm pretty sure it was you that said this, where you went through kind of like, this is not my child.
Mhm.
This is simply, I was the container for her to come through. And like the ownership that often can occur when parents have a child. I that was like that super resonated with me when you were posting that a few years ago, like on your stories
Yeah,
and Instagram. That just
she's
that
God's
really
child.
hits.
Hmm.
Yeah, she's God's child.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is a blessing. I am blessed and honored to be a guide and a space holder and someone that can assist along the path, but she's not mine. She is her own sovereign being. And I always want to empower that in her for sure. Even as young as 2 years old, like what do you want to wear? What do you want to eat? What do you want to, and if she wants to just eat chips and it's like, no, baby, you have to eat food. That's me coming in from the sidelines, nudging. What about this instead? What about this instead? How about this suggestion? But I'm very blessed that like my daughter is so wise that it's just like, what about this instead? Yeah. It doesn't, there's not a lot of moments of resistance in her being like, even at 2, terrible twos, whatever, like even at 2, she's throwing her temper tantrums and I'm just holding space for her. And then she gets up and she does what she knows I'm trying to guide her and influence her to do. Even if she has to go through her process first. We have a
Well,
trust. She knows that I have her back.
yeah. And it's the intention I feel like you're coming from,
Hmm.
because children are so sensitive
Yeah.
that they can pick up and they can feel, and like if you're coming from an intention like, yes, but this might serve you more.
Yes,
I'm saying
exactly.
suggesting this because it's going to fully help you, not
Hmm.
because I think you should do this and rah, 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 rah.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's definitely, yeah, definitely an
And I
intention
and
or
I catch
intuitive.
myself in those "Meh, meh, meh, I think you should do this," meh, 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 and I
Yeah.
have those moments and then I'm like, oh, this is what Brittany wants. This is not actually what's like in the best for her right now. This is just what
Mhm.
Brittany wants. I really want you to wear the cute little dress to Christmas, but she really don't want to.
On the cute bow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
put on the
cute
cute
bow.
fucking out. Come on, just do it. But that's what I want. That's because I want to take a cute little picture with my little cute family.
Mhm.
So, and sometimes she doesn't want to, and that's okay. And if it's really important to her, then that's okay. I will be okay. But I do have moments where I see my agenda, and this isn't actually about what's the best for you. And I think
Yeah.
because I have an ability to surrender that and to respect her, there's a trust there because she knows that a large majority of the time I'm genuinely trying to help her. It's not because I just want her to do what I want her to do.
Yeah. It's for the greatest good.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Me and her dad both, really.
So DJ, Gaia's father,
Hmm.
and now this new baby's father,
Hmm.
what has it looked like to be in sacred union? How does that relationship with, you know, the love of your life change when these new energies start to come in, or, your transition, losing that identity that did
Hmm.
fall in love with,
Hmm.
this person? How does that shift as you become a new being, a mother?
Well, and also not only did I fall in love with him in that identity, but he fell in love with
He,
me
yes.
in that, and then I was becoming a different woman
Hmm.
very quickly. DJ and I met in September, or no, August, and then September is whenever I essentially stole him away from New Jersey.
Hmm.
And now, granted, the energetics of that leading up to that union were about like 6 months prior to that. Um, Basically, to make a very long, in depth story short, I had been on a twin flame journey for over 3 years and doing really deep work just around codependency, addiction, um, and just all the beautiful things that the twin flame mirroring and reflecting energy, that energy has to offer you. And then my higher power told me, like, he's not here in Kentucky. Like, you have to go on the road. And so I packed up my whole apartment, and put it in a storage unit and took off on the road. And I asked Spirit, this was the day that I was leaving, or maybe the week before I was leaving. And I was like, where am I going? Like, I know that you said that I'm going, but where am I going? And told me to go back to my roots. You need to go back to your
Mm.
roots. I was like, okay. So I went up to New Jersey, because that's where I was born and raised. And DJ and I actually met. He showed up at my door, at the house that I was staying in, to fix my shower. And it was 3 blocks away from the hospital that I was born in. And yeah, and he was
Whoa.
actually born in
I
that
didn't know
same
that part.
hospital. Hmm.
Holy
Hmm.
cow.
Yeah. And
What?
also, my mom met the love of her life. This wasn't my dad, but the my stepdad, who she's with now, she met the her love of her life, because she had a rental house that the shower in the basement broke, and my stepdad was the plumber that showed up to fix the shower.
Holy shit.
Yeah. When I called my
Holy
mom and told her, the first thing she said, she was like, "Get your own fucking story." Sorry, mom, I didn't mean to.
It's just the universe.
Yeah, that's my mom,
That's
man.
amazing.
And we had a beautiful, he had already been telling, like, he had told his boss 6 months before that, right whenever I was packing up my apartment, he went to his boss that same exact month, and told his boss, like, listen, I don't know what's happening. I just know that something is changing and I'm going to be leaving New Jersey. And I just want to give you a heads up so that way you guys can begin transition. And he had no idea. Like, he's telling this man to find somebody for my job, and I have no clue where I'm going or what's happening. I can just feel it in the field.
That's truly insane.
and
So,
then and then whenever I showed up, in September or August, and then I met his boss, because his boss was also, he was, they were all friends. And so they had like some, barbecue, and so we went over there. And whenever, they were like, whenever they met me, they were just like, him, and you could tell his boss and his wife were just like looking at me like fucking tripped out. Like, they were like, dude, he told us this was going to happen like 6 months ago. He told us some big life event was coming, and that he was going to be leaving New Jersey, and that, like, we needed to prepare for that, because he was a really integral part in their business. Like, he was
mhm.
basically the main guy underneath the boss, and so he was trying to give them plenty of heads up, and they almost didn't believe him. And so then, they were like, can you at least give us 2 weeks? Like we
Yeah,
didn't really take you
sometime,
seriously. Like, yeah.
sometime,
And then
please.
here you
Yes.
are, and you're like, this is the love of my life, and we're about to take off and leave and go. And they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, and I had so many crazy synchronicities in our union, when we first were getting together, like from
Mhm.
whenever I had my twin flame Kundalini awakening, when I was 25. Like, literally saw this eagle sitting on a car at a gas station. Yes, an actual bald eagle
Whoa.
sitting on someone's car at a Wawa when I was going through my Kundalini awakening, just like.
Down to the T.
And
At a
then
Wawa.
and then and then whenever I came into union with DJ, so fucking crazy. There were so many of these synchronicities. Like, I started making a list of them on my phone because it became so many things.
Promise.
Um, Him and I were sitting down at this on this riverbank. And this is in the same area where I saw this eagle. Was probably about 3 hours away from where DJ and I came into union, where I had my Kundalini awakening. And we're sitting on this riverbank, and And it's not like bald eagles are like commonly seen. Like it's not, this is not like an area where they're like commonly seen at. And we're sitting on the riverbank and we look up in the sky and I'm like, holy shit, like that's a huge hawk. And he goes, I don't think that's a hawk, babe. That's a bald eagle. And he doesn't even know all of this from the past, right? And he goes, it's almost like kind of like a baby, or maybe he's like 3 years old. Swear to God, the bald eagle that I saw on the car was a baby. Its hair hadn't even turned to the white yet. It was a
Yeah.
baby, 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 baby. And then 3 years later, a bald eagle comes swooping over the riverbank and then flies up into the tree directly above where DJ and I are sitting.
My
And he
God.
happened to say, it's like he's like 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 years in the making.
Yeah. And so just
Whoa.
synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity like that, completing my whole like twin flame Kundalini awakening and then coming into union. And then we left to go back. We drove to go back to Kentucky, having no idea that we must have conceived like the week before we left, because when we got home, I found out that I was pregnant with Gaia on my birthday, which is October 12th.
My God.
So it's like we met and it was like we started our life together. These were all things that we had intentions and, had said, is this something that you're wanting? And, we had those conversations, but it was just like boom, boom, boom. And then I was dealing with like all of the different medical things that were going on in my body. And then DJ's watching me go through this massive initiation. And he's also going through his own initiation from being, a boy into a
Right.
father. And we just, it honestly was one of the most challenging relationships that we both knew at the core that we were going to be together, but we had so much to go through in order to get to a place of harmony. It's like whenever they talk about how when you come together in a twin flame union, you're not just immediately harmonious. You still have
Yeah, there's a lot of
all of
shit.
these energetics to work out. And I didn't get that because we were harmonious when we like first, came together, and I was like, oh my God, it's magical and beautiful forever. And that's just like not the reality of it. Like once reality set in and the rose colored glasses came off, there was so much for us to transcend and to embody. Like it's like we had both been doing the work to come to physical union, but
Frequency
then we
match.
had but then we had to come to harmonious union. And
Mm.
so we went through such an initiation, both becoming parents and not really knowing each other in this human experience. We knew each other
Yeah.
soul level, but I'm like, I don't really know this fucking guy. Can I trust him? Is he going to stick around? Like, I don't know. I literally
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
I love you on a soul level, but are you actually going to be here for the long haul?
Are you gonna stand up? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to step up and become a father?
Mm.
And he's, having his own trauma with all of the women. He's been cheated on a lot of times and,
Mm.
all these kinds of things. So it's like all of this trauma for him is arising. And we just became these like two completely different people than who we were when we first met and came into union. And then we kind of were just like, I guess you could say, like, muscling through it and we would have moments of harmony, but then it would cycle out again. We were getting closer and closer though. We were like collapsing it, but then like the old cycle would come back, and then we were collapsing it and the old cycle would come back. And then we separated. And we separated in November of last year. And then we almost like didn't really speak really, other than for exchanges with Gaia or things that she needed, for almost 3 months. And then DJ had a awakening, a breakdown, where he just like poured himself out to me and was like, I'm not okay with this. Like we're supposed to be together. We both know that we're supposed to be together. And I get that you need to set boundaries, and I haven't been showing up for you in the way that I need to be. And what are we going to do to work on that instead of just stop talking to each other? And so then we went to therapy. And then we were in therapy. We're still go to therapy together, but we were
That's beautiful. That needs to
much,
happen more
yeah.
for so many people. Yeah.
It was much more like, like often in the very beginning. And then, now it's just like every other week, kind of like check-ins kind of a thing. But it was like we went through an intense amount of work in order to be able to come back into union, into harmonious union this time. And actually, it all aligned for him to move home back into, this space. It was actually Lionsgate weekend, not planned at all. That's just when it ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What a beautiful Lionsgate is so fucking
I
powerful. I've had
know.
so many experiences with
I
Lionsgate,
know.
dude. Oh,
I know.
wow.
So he moved
Yes.
back home the first weekend of August, and then we've been really hard. Like we don't argue anymore. We don't do any of that shit anymore. Like we don't.
That's
We
amazing.
respect that we're like different people, and we like have. It's like all of those. Like I love the quote that says like, "You want to be loved unconditionally, but you're walking around with a bag of conditions." It's like
Oh, I'm gonna write that down. Oh my God.
it's like we don't want someone to love us unconditional, or we don't want someone to love us conditionally, but yet we're walking around saying, I need you to be this, and I need you to be this, and I need you to be this, and I need you to do this in order for me to love you. And whenever you can truly and honestly accept that person, like DJ and I are very different. Like he's like meat and potatoes, grungy, fixes shit, appliance repairman, like, and I'm like over here meditating most of my day and like tapping into spiritual realms and eating all this like organic and, just really healthy, nourishing food. And there was such a long time period. And that's why we collided for so long, because I was like, drinking, Red Bull or Mountain Dew is like, it's bad for you. You're bad. It's negative. This is negative energy in my space. And all of this judgment and, and it was like DJ and like true sacred union has been the greatest teacher of really being able to allow unconditional love to exist, to not make it's all unconditional love. The Red Bull is just as beautiful as the vegan smoothie.
Yeah.
And it's like whenever
How
I know it's
how,
really hard.
how do you get to that point?
It is so hard for people to wrap their head around that, because they're
Yeah.
like, but this is science and this has been proven to healthy, and da, da, da. And it's like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking
Yeah.
about acceptance and allowance and truly existing in a state of love and non-judgment.
Yeah.
And honestly, like this is why it's so hard. This is why it's not something that I teach on, because it's so hard to explain how unconditional love works, and how, at least it is for me, because DJ has just been a mirror of that for me. And that's how I've learned it, is because he will continuously put me in my place and remind me. And I don't mean that in like a woman put you, but I mean,
No. No.
call me out and say like, oh, you really like to judge people, don't you? And I'll be like, you're right. I am judging what you're eating right now. Or I am judging that you want to go to the casino to gamble. Or I am, these things that he genuinely enjoys. Him gambling, that's how he plays with his intuition. It's fun for him. It's no big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
That I'm the one making that a big deal. That's not a big deal.
Mm.
Unless he had an actual problem where he was like blowing all of our money on
Yeah.
gambling, that's different. But it's a very allotted, save up $100 so that way I can play in the tournament. It's planned. Like it's not. It's a fun game. Just like if I were to save up money to sign up for a course, because that's fun and enticing and educational for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Why does what he want to do, why would that be wrong? And for so long I really thought that what I was doing was better. I was on my high horse. I was on my pedestal. What I eat
Girl,
is
I feel
better,
you.
and what I do
I
is
feel you.
better.
I have a problem with that. Yep.
And
Yep.
y'all's is below me. And it's honestly, not only is it damaging to our relationships, but it's such a painful and suffering way to live. To really feel that way and to see through that lens, it hurts because it's not true to your soul. Your soul doesn't actually think that you're better. Your soul doesn't actually think that they're above anyone else. So you're literally causing disharmony within yourself because your mind has this judgment.
That's bringing tears to my eyes. Oh my God. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hurts. It literally hurts because it's not who we really are.
No.
And when
And
we
no
can,
wonder.
yeah,
Oh, go
like
ahead.
when we can just embrace, to me this is like true new earth.
Mhm.
When we can embrace that, like for example, all of this stuff that happened with the election, and it's like, well, if you're a Trump supporter, then I delete you from my life. And it's like, we're going to have to rebuild new earth with people that I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
But do I think that my beliefs are better than them? No. They are just as important. They are just as much God's child. They are just as worthy of having a voice and having, they are not any less than me. They are just as divine. And we are going to have to build hand in hand this new place together. Even if I don't, even if I, what I think, how I think that you perceive the world is really fucking weird to me, that's, I can observe and understand that that's my judgment, but I have the connection of you where I also simultaneously don't truly feel that you are less than or I am better than you. I don't feel that way. And we live in a vibrational reality, so it's all really going to be about, it is about how we think, but it's more dominantly about how we feel. So I can observe my
Absolutely.
thought of my judgment of you and how I think that that's really fucked up that you think that way. And I also can still grab your hand and rebuild this earth together.
Yeah, it's both. It's all existing at the same place.
Exactly.
And I remember you saying that we were in a mentor session one time, and I think I was talking about light and and like
Mhm.
how like well that's light sided or something or dark, and you stopped me and you were like no no no, like ascension and evolution is being able to hold both. It's not like 5D is being able to hold both. It's not just all light. It's
Yes.
holding both and being able to sit, so yeah,
Hmm.
simultaneously with
With it all.
everything all at once. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, that striked a lot of emotion because my relationship, my partner likes to eat what he wants, and I eat and try to eat very, very clean and stuff. And it can be just an area where he's like, "Why are you judging me? Like, eggs in the morning are not bad. Like, stop judging me,"
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Well, medical medium says blah, blah, blah." And yeah, it's just like, yeah, it can be okay. And like, two, I come at it from like in their timeline, like what if it is beneficial for them? Like they're
Hmm.
creating it. They're the creator of their own timeline, and so whatever they see is beneficial is okay in their life, and it may not harm them. Like if I am creating this harsh view on something, I'm actually maybe creating a timeline where that hurts my body or something. It's so different, but that's beautiful to have like such a strong reflection of unconditional love. And I have that too with my partner. He's a Scorpio, and my best friend Brielle, is Scorpio, and like they always have cups runneth over. Like they're always giving. They love so deeply and so hard, and growing up in a space of conditional love in a family that was very much so conditional love, it's like weird for me. And I've noticed patterns of like, well, my cup is empty and you keep giving to me, and so I feel like I shouldn't receive that because I can't give it back. But like it's this understanding of like, no, just you can receive it all because we're not keeping track. We're not keeping
Yes. It's
tally.
not
We're
transactional.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not transactional. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is so
Yeah.
resonant. I actually wanted to do a podcast episode on unconditional love and like channel a message. So this is beautiful, and I feel like giving me just more information to ponder upon and really awaken within myself.
Yeah, and I feel like as you were talking, the quote that we started with, I felt like
Yes.
almost was circling back because it's unconditional love is very detached. And a lot of people struggle with that. It's not the detachment is not because like you're talking about you and your partner and him eating eggs and it's like it's not because I care less. It's because I care more for my own serenity. This is stressing me out to watch you eat eggs. Why am I going to steal my own serenity because you're eating eggs?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so a lot of people are really uncomfortable with the level of detachment that's needed for true unconditional love.
Mm.
They think that they don't care or that they're not loving when actually you are actually loving. You're truly loving. You're not putting conditions on your love. But
Yes.
that does take a level of, I let you be you. I let you operate as you are because I actually do love you and I want you to be who you are.
Mm. Gotta process all that wisdom. Goddamn. I'm like just vibrating. Yes. That makes me think of a Ram Dass quote where he talks about detachment and he's like, I love, it's like not about having preferences. Like he's like, I love the color blue. Like I would prefer blue, but if I get green, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't matter. And so yeah, like I love you for who you are. And I love it when you eat this way, but also like I love you when you eat the other way too.
Yes,
Like I
exactly.
just love all of you and I
Yes,
get to practice that. And
exactly.
that's what we need on the planet.
Yes.
Just deep love for one another and
Mhm.
seeing each other
As you
clearly.
are,
Hmm.
as you are
Yeah.
in this now moment.
Yes. Mm. Thank you so much for that beautiful sharing. Personal stories just like they hit so much different, when you
Mhm.
can feel and hear the wisdom and the practices and see how someone implements it in their life, like it just, there's so much wisdom. And that's why stories have been told for thousands and thousands of years.
Mhm.
It's because they resonate so deeply. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you and your vulnerability today and sharing just a piece with the Earth to Marissa podcast community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me. This is so, so sweet. And I too feel the same way about stories. Like there's just it also like connects with our memory in a different way.
Yes.
That wisdom can really settle in our systems. So yeah, I hope that my story is helpful to someone. That would be amazing.
It will be. I already know it. I already know it. Well, where can people find you, Brittany? What you got going on in your life?
Well, right now I have, if you're in Louisville or nearby, I have an event called Cracked Open happening next weekend. It's really, really powerful energy work. So if you haven't really worked with energy work, I don't recommend it. But if you're someone that does often work with energy work, this is a great activation space. Um, and I can drop, there's some information on my website and on my social medias. And then I also have the next round of the intuition development course, which is a psychic development channeling course, that starts on February 4th. And then I have all different other, if you want to do an individual session, that kind of a thing. You can find all that on my website and my socials, which is Divinity Experiencing on everything, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube, all the things. It's always
Got it all.
Divinity Experiencing.
Beautiful. And I'll have it all linked below too.
Cool.
So definitely check out the description. Well, thank you so much. Definitely, yes, check out the intuition development course. It's truly changed my life. And
Uh,
working with Brittany, like stepping into a container with you, it is a vortex of just healing, transformation, and deep, deep soul wisdom. So I appreciate you and what you bring for the world. And thank you so much.
Thank you.